Today I want to talk to you about losing employees, as losing employees in a company can be devastating to the organization, and it can also be devastating to the quality of services provided to the consumers that you serve. So today let's talk about decreasing turnover through effective selection, some of the lessons that I learned from fighting. If you are a leader or part of a team of folks who have been tasked with developing an organization, the process can be similar to the ebb and flow of a battle that occurs in a championship fight. During some rounds, the leader might be the coach encouraging or wiping the sweat off their fighter while giving him or her water. In other rounds, the leader is the one actually in the fight, bobbing and weaving as they seek to overcome obstacles and capitalize on opportunities. The process can be exhausting, and reaching desired goals might feel like winning a championship belt. It's been my experience that adversity is positively related to feelings associated with success. In other words, the more adversity one has overcome to meet a goal, the greater the feeling of achievement they will experience. I've had the unusual experience of being the fighter and coach across different fields, including education, mental health, applied behavior analysis, and combat sports. In boxing and mixed martial arts, we typically take about 6 to 8 weeks to prepare for a fight. Preparation can be dull and grueling, and during the fight, pain is rather immediate as you're getting cracked in the head or legs or wherever. However, the end is always in sight and within one's grasp, as it is typically contingent upon the fighter's performance during the fight. If the fighter prepared well and received good coaching, he or she likely has a solid shot at getting their hand raised and winning. Contrary to combat sports, many fields like education and mental health experience a never-ending battle, as the end is nebulous and preparation, at least as it currently stands, is less predictive of success given the meta contingencies or multiple if-thens beyond one's control. And unlike combat sports, the impact of excellent performance or lack thereof is beyond measure, as it can reverberate for generations across the people and families being served. In these fields, it's not a fight, it's the fight, as it's a continuous battle to support and help people grow. Getting the right person in the right place is critical to the success of the person and the organization. As such, it's important the selection or hiring process be taken very seriously. I've learned an important lesson about the selection process from my experience in both combat sports and education I'd like to share with you in just a moment. My motivation to fight likely came from a combination of factors like participating in competitive sports, being bullied, spending part of my youth in a rough area, and just being in the right place or wrong place, depending on your perspective of boxing and MMA, at the right time. The first day I stepped foot into the gym, I found myself in the ring with a professional boxer. I can remember having thoughts of that latest Mad Max movie, Beyond Thunderdome, the chant they were saying, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. What really happened was that 2 men entered and 1 man left with a broken nose. It's still broken to this day. I'm actually going to be getting it fixed very soon. Yep, the professional fighter, who actually later turned out to be sort of a mentor to me, broke my nose after I landed a lucky punch. I must have been driven, as I was back in the gym the next day taking another beating, broken nose and all. I'm not a one-trial learner, apparently. Some people might say I had an unusual desire, but I think that most people who are right in the head likely wouldn't have come back. Actually, I'm fine in the head, at least I think that. It's just quitting wasn't an option for me given my circumstances at that time. You see, back in those days, natural selection was the hiring process at many of the local boxing gyms. Typically, the trainer was making little to no money and did not have the time nor the desire to work with somebody who they didn't consider hungry or gritty. So the novice was thrown into the ring to see if they would sink or swim. You were going to take a beating. The unwritten rule, like natural selection, was that only the strong survive. Except in my case, it may have been the dumbest, as what person with any common sense would be back in the very next day, broken nose and all, taking a beating? I often wondered how many potential world champions never came back to the gym as a result of a similar experience as they wrongfully thought, I ain't got what it takes. When really, the environment wasn't set up to bring out the right stuff, or rather, the right performance out of them. Thankfully, the selection process for organizations, while challenging, is not physically brutal, like the gym. Leaders are best served by embedding evidence-based selection process, unlike the one I was exposed to reduce the likelihood of an error in selection through strategies like gut hiring. Gut hiring is a bad thing. You don't want to gut hire. You want to have some real evidence, data. I've seen folks hired for the craziest reasons, like we went to school together. Oh, I knew his daddy, or she loves cats. I don't know what to say about that one. Without a good strategy, organizations are rolling the dice and might wind up with the wrong person on the right ship. Unfortunately, in smaller organizations, the wrong person can quickly sink that ship. Sometimes leaders are tempted to hire just because they are short-staffed and need to fill the position. I've seen this happen in the school system. In fact, as a former assistant principal, I've fallen victim to the very same thought process when I wanted a school leader to hire a staff member who had recently come up as a free agent within the district. The problem was that this staff had a history of shenanigans. Ever the optimist, I believed that we could effectively shape the staff's performance. Thankfully, the wise leader recommended that waiting would be optimal and said we are better off with nobody in that position until we get the right person. Later that year, the same staff member ended up being involved in another mishap at another school that caused that school's leadership a tremendous amount of trouble. The point here is that leaders should do their best to get the right people in their fight through an effective hiring process. Okay, so here's the big lesson. Hire character and will over skill. As a boxing and MMA coach, I have found that skill will create contenders, but becoming a reigning champion requires character and will. Hiring based on a skills focus can help fighters and gyms reach short-term goals, but only in rare conditions obtain a title. If organizations want the sustainability needed to reach long-term goals, absence of character or will can get the leader TKO'd after just a couple of rounds. There are many evidence-based processes like behavior-based interviewing where scenarios are presented that prompt the interviewee to talk about their past behavior when handling specific situations. The interviewers can use the talk aloud problem-solving process, which essentially has the interviewee speak their thoughts as they walk the interviewers through their problem-solving and decision-making processes. While gaining insight on how the candidate might approach various situations, this information can then be used as a potential predictor of future performance. And folks, that's a lot better than hiring them just because they like cats. When leaders hire somebody who is not as skilled but has character and will, their skills and job-related self-efficacy or grit can be rapidly improved through effective talent development processes, training and coaching. I've discussed this in a few of my articles, so take a look on LinkedIn. Now, you might be thinking that might be great if leaders could find that kind of driven employee. They just aren't out there. Well, they might be. Sometimes it just takes patience. I'm going to say more than they might be. They are out there. You just got to be patient sometimes. But even when this type of drive can't be found, if organizations put effort into hiring people with character, their skill and will can be improved systematically through the science of human behavior. Acquiring people with character who are at least reasonably motivated is half the battle for developing a driven employee. So remember, if you want to be successful, hire character and will over skill. Skills are far easier to develop. I hope this has been helpful.